Welcome back to another episode of the Corporate Cowboys podcast. As always, my name is Alex. For the next half hour, I'll be your host as we explore the innards, the insides of corporate. always, as always, the mission is to help you develop yourself and attain that state of consummate professionalism. We want to create more corporate cowboys. We want to lead leaders, or develop leaders. We don't necessarily have to be in front of the pack. Just have to roll with a circle of bosses, a circle of kings, a circle of leaders. So long as they know how to work together, what roles they fulfill for one another, because service goes in just like it goes out. Service goes up just like it goes down, right? So if you're providing service of any kind, the experience is both ways. It's mutual. Just like you want good service is expected in return, right? That's how business is done. That's how business is made. That's how deals are closed. That's how business is reproduced. I mean, business is war in a sense, right? Because it's always competitive, but it doesn't mean that folks have to walk away having lost, right? It shouldn't always be zero sum, unless we're talking about a war or a battle of principalities, right? Good versus evil, that sort of thing, yada yada yada. But besides that fact, along the way, at every step, you should be thinking of how you are improving, how you are becoming a better professional, and in turn, improving business relations, making business better, right? If you don't have a circle of partners to talk to, a circle of business associates, acquaintances, colleagues to come to for advice, for opinions, for perspective, that's what you got us for. Now, the legal disclaimer is that none of what you hear through these episodes, through this podcast, or anything that's published with the Corporate Cowboys name on it, none of it should be construed as legal advice, unless it's been specifically tailored for you, your situation, if you've engaged us or retained us. And by all means, you could do that. Reach out to us. We're on Instagram. You can get into contact with us, and our rates are more than reasonable, right? What you pay and invest in yourself by way of career consulting or career development, professional development, will pay off in great dividends in the future. And we've got plenty of former clients that have been satisfied with the progress they've made in their respective careers and organizations. So what I'll be giving across then, what I'll be providing in these episodes, what I have been providing throughout the course of this podcast, are just general opinions. This is general advice and perspective, right? At no point in time do we promote or condone any wrongful activity, any wrongdoing. So you can't pin your actions on us. You have to be responsible for your own actions. You can't say gangsta rap made me do it, or the Corporate Cowboys said I should or I could. I mean, you could do whatever the fuck you want, but then you gotta serve up that ass to cash checks you wrote. Feel me? Don't write checks that your ass cannot cash. Now, we might touch on some sensitive subjects, and they might border on, the gray area between legal and not legal, which is why we got the hashtag not legal advice, because, it's a play on words. It's none of this is legal advice, and sometimes we might give not legal advice, which is to not break the law or not get You know what I mean. I'm not going to incriminate just for the sake of you getting a joke and me explaining it and killing the horse just to beat it to death. You feel me? So, today's question, not so much question, I would say. Maybe they are asking for some perspective, but it's more so a comment. And this is coming from r/career advice. So, whether or not this is advice, shit, you tell me. But I'll let you know by my opinion, my commentary, whether or not they even need us. They're right in the title. Anybody out there who went to school for something and is not current and is currently not working in it. Damn, I butchered that title. Anybody out there who went to school for something and is currently not working in it, right? So say you went to school for English, right? And you didn't go into, I don't know, teaching English. Really, what else can you do with English? You could write books. You could write copyright. You could further continue and into journalism, right? Which might be an offshoot of English. You're using the language, you're exploring it, and you're also learning how to propagandize narratives, right? That's a spin on creative writing and English composition. I don't mean that to be funny, but it is. It's a spin, and you do a lot of spinning in journalism and creative writing, in a sense. It requires that, right? But what if you don't? What if you get a degree in English and you go off and become a, let's say, massage therapist, right? Is that not, I mean, I'm not going to say it's weird, because I'm going to premise this entire podcast by saying what matters is what you do to get ahead. Sure, you invested in your education to a degree, and whether or not it's a worthless certificate or a worthless degree, whatever major it is you chose to take up, whether it's for your associates or your bachelor's or your master's or your post grad, your doctoral, your PhD, whatever it is. If it's not something you're working in now actively, what you took from that experience, if it is not helping you get ahead professionally, if none of those skills that you develop you were able to market, that is a waste of a degree. Simple as. Right? If your degree didn't help you at all become a better professional, if none of the skills you picked up and learned help you become a better professional. I mean, you could say like, oh, well, it's the humanities or liberal arts, I became a better human. Well, you're also a human in debt now. So good luck digging yourself out of that hole if you have to market whatever the fuck underwater basket weaving taught you in the form of intersectionality, and now you've got to go market that and hustle and get a job and provide for yourself, and it more than likely won't be in the degree that you graduated with. Right? That's neither here nor there, though. Let me read the body of this question for you. I feel like this is a different form of how I'm presenting the material. I'm not going to lie. I read the title, I took out my piece, and I'm just dry firing it because I feel like we're going to be pontificating a little bit, right? Thinking about using thought experiments and just spitballing ideas and borderline philosophy off of one another, even though you'll be doing most of the listening and I'll be doing most of the talking. But, if you have questions like this, or if you know somebody who does by all means, reach out to us. That's what we're here for. Again, our rates are more than reasonable. You can find us online on Instagram. That's at Corporate Cowboys with a Z. On Patreon, we are the Corporate Cowboys Podcast. And there are a couple of donation links floating around if you want to help keep this podcast free and help pay for office supplies, stationery, and paperweights. They write here, it can be anything, they write. Was the experience not what you expected? Did you love it once and now it isn't your passion anymore? All answers are welcome. Okay. So they want something general, right? They want to touch on a lot of points, and maybe they're at the crossroads themselves. Again, we don't have the hypothetical client in front of us. I treat all of these questions as if they came from a hypothetical client, and I preface it, I qualify them with being hypothetical because, they're not actually our client, right? So this can't be actual advice I'm giving. It's got to be more general. I've got to shape it, mold it in a way where you, the listener, could extract some value from it, right? If they were uber specific, and most clients tend to be, especially when they come to us and we process them through some form of intake interview and really get to the root of their professional issue that they're trying to overcome, it gets really granular, really specific. And in most instances, it won't help you, the general listener, because they might be in a unique situation where advice that I give them may or may not help you. So if I can distill it, if I could take a step away, a couple of steps away, a couple of degrees of separation, I'm able to give more general advice and let you know that, like this question, if you graduated in an area that you don't want to practice it necessarily, you may have graduated because there are skills you picked up that interested you. I'll give you an example. My name is Alex, and I'm a trained social researcher. I actually got a degree in organizational studies. Now, that is a branch of sociology, right? But it's not sociology. It's not pure sociology. Today's sociology is not the sociology of the past. Today's is more watered down and it's more diluted. Or is it diluted? There are great delusions taking place in sociology as far as societal norms or tendencies are going, societal trends, where I saw that coming down the pipeline, and I chose not to go down sociology. Otherwise, I would be made to memorize and regurgitate very, very unappealing talking points, especially if I wanted to continue and get a master's or a PhD, have some sort of thesis or a dissertation, which I've had plenty of ideas for, right? I'm a social researcher. I enjoy talking. That's part of the reason why I volunteered to start the podcast for my associates, is so that I could not only practice oration, that is speaking verbally, public speaking, or private speaking in private dealings, right? That is a major reason why I started this podcast, is so I can develop myself, treat this as a form of self-therapy. It's very cathartic, but it also allows me to speak up on my ideas. It's verbalize ideas and concepts that I can later use in practice, right? This is a form of practice before actual consulting, where I could later apply these practically in my day-to-day work as a consultant, as a legal professional, right? And then from sociology or from organizational studies, I chose to go to law school. And that's not exactly what I would have done with a sociology degree. But I knew I didn't want to be a sociologist by title. More so because just how they're viewed in today's day and age. They're doing some wild, out of pocket shit. You feel me? So I figured I could take what I learned through organizational studies. I was lucky to be able to craft and shape my own curriculum and pick courses, take classes that were more rooted in reality and not so fucking theoretical as far as gender or sex. I mean, none of that is theory. It's actual reality. But they want to layer this veneer of theory that gender or sexuality doesn't exist. All right. Whatever. Me personally, I've been using they them since I became a professional for the sake of being a fucking professional, right? If you put your sexuality before business, you're going to get fucked one way or another. But again, business is war. Me working on becoming a consummate professional. I enjoy interviewing and speaking interpersonally with other individuals. Hopefully, also aspiring professionals like myself. So, while I'm not a sociologist, I'm a trained social researcher. So I took what I learned within sociology and the study of organizations and how they interact with the individual person, with how they interact with one another between organizations, with how they interact between governments, between institutions, non-governmental organizations, right? So the interaction between them. From the bottom of the hierarchy to the tippy top of whatever iceberg. Little play on words for my conspiracy-minded associates. From the bottom of any hierarchy to the tippy top, to the peak of any iceberg. What I took from social research, I'm now able to apply in a legal capacity, right? And this helps me advise my clients and give them more informed opinions by how I interview them, by the inferences that I can deduct, and the reasoning and rationale with which to back it up with. This allows us to create tactful strategies for moving up through corporate, for navigating the corporate ladder. Because you're not always just going from the bottom up. Sometimes you've got to lateral and move sideways. You've got to sidestep in order to get ahead at times. And it may be decisions or maybe actions that, because our clients find themselves in this conundrum, in this box, in this situation, it's more difficult for them to think outside of the box. And they need motherfuckers like us who can provide them with perspective and have them think. Actually persuade them that thinking like a corporate cowboy, while it comes with risk, might allow them and provide them the opportunity to get where it is they want to be, where it is that they believe they deserve to be, right? Sometimes it's not just, oh, the next step up is the next promotion. Sometimes it's a step out. Maybe you don't want to stick around in the same organization. You don't want to, quote, wait your turn until you achieve seniority because you were there for 3 years or 5 years. You're now entitled to move up. You're the next one in line. Everybody else ahead of you either jumped ship or got a new job or died, and now it's just your turn to fill their spot. Nah. Sometimes you do need to think out of the box and form these opportunities, create these opportunities for yourself to move up. It's imperative that you think like this so that you're able to elevate your worth. Empower yourself to think on the level of corporate and learn to deal with corporate. It's funny to say eye to eye when corporate in and of itself is just a legal person. It's not an actual person. You can't see them eye to eye. You're always going to be dealing with some agent. It's going to be an executive. It's going to be a representative of some kind. But you can elevate yourself to the same level as corporate and learn to work with them, learn to deal with them, not just work for them, not just be a subordinate forever, right? The goal is to get paid out what you're worth and not have it be dictated by someone who's just giving you a standard offer because that's standard practice. You don't want to be an average motherfucker. You want to be better, always. Because a consummate professional is never done. The work is never over. I feel for those of us that have to grow old and retire because that's like throwing in the towel. And at times, sometimes it's forced. It's time doing that to you. You're older, you're weaker, you can't keep up, you can't think like you used to. And so you find you either have to slow down or you've got to bow out. Some folks do it gracefully. Other folks gotta get that early retirement. You feel me? But it happens. Right? I'm not making light of the situation, but reality requires us to always find the humor even where there might not be any. Right? Where there is an end, there is new beginnings. So just my opinion, really, just my perspective. It's what you take from your past experience and are able to transpose it, are able to forward it, or use it to forward yourself as a marketable professional, right? I'm sure there is some skill, some talent, some ability in a liberal arts degree, like sociology. I managed to do it, but that's because I saw the writing on the wall and I didn't want to go out like a fucking brain dead scholar or academic. I'll just put it that way so it doesn't sound too political. I didn't want to go out like that. So, having seen the writing on the wall, I took what skills I picked up. I learned to hone them and sharpen them up and be one capable motherfucker in terms of reading, writing, and speaking. So now the connections I make and the network that I keep is able to help me develop professionally and constantly, especially in the legal field. Never know who you might run into. You never know when you might need or require of their services. So, having been a social researcher hasn't hurt me at all. If anything, it's helped me 100-fold. And I'm sure there's got to be at least one skill. If me, Alex, and a lot of my circle, if I believe everyone, and I do sincerely believe everyone has at least $1 million idea that they just have difficulty manifesting or turning from an intangible thought in their brains into an actual, factual, tangible plan with a trademark or a copyright or a patent, right, that they could then license and make those $1 million. Again, that's higher level thinking and planning. If you need help with that, reach out to us. If I think everyone has at least one, they just don't have the proper resources or the proper training or the proper incentive or initiative. And for that, they might need some perspective, which is what we provide. Then underwater basket weaving had to have given this degree holder at least one fucking skill they can use to promote themselves, right? It doesn't really matter in the long run. It doesn't matter what your past was. What matters is what you're doing now. But if your entire identity revolves around underwater basket weaving, you're in fucking trouble. You're in trouble. Look at these motherfuckers over there at that beer company who are suffering right now. And if you're listening to this, let me tell you, it's Proof of Life. It's Friday, April 14, 2023. And if you are tracking the news, there's a very popular beer company, a blue can, or I guess now it's a fucking rainbow blue can, but with the blue can beer company, that apparently nobody else in the C-suite, from the vice presidents on up, nobody fucking knew this was happening. No way, you don't say? Of course they're gonna disavow this bullshit, right? But it lets you know that somebody, like the marketing director or this person in the marketing department that thought this marketing campaign to the Rainbow Group, and not even the Rainbow Group, because even rainbows are biblical, but the perverted Rainbow Group, let's call it, right? The subverted Rainbow Group. Might be a little better, whatever. But for the Alphabet Group, even they learned something in school that allowed them to market themselves as hireable for that position. Granted, now they're losing this blue can beer company a fuck ton of money. And if that doesn't make heads roll, I mean, who's to say they're going to be accountable for it anyways, right? They might have, it might have been a forced hire. It might have been a quota hire, some type of something in the background that we aren't seeing, but it's out there. Only because I haven't read into their hiring policies. I haven't read into their onboarding requirements or their training at all. We don't have a copy of their employment agreement to go through and scrutinize. But it lets you know that even that person who is not willing, but who is capable of gouging and making this company hemorrhage fuck tons of money, even they had one thing. They had one thing that made them marketable. And I mean, you get a lot of this alphabet pedagogy in the form of instructure and indoctrination in higher education. And it was beginning to pop up in sociology, which is why your boy decided to take a turn for something that's grounded, more grounded in reality, like organizational studies, because organizations are an actual thing. They're an actual real thing. Social identities and social contracts are just that. They're social. That's it. For me, I wanted something more professional, something beyond just the personal, because personal is private, professional is more public. But what you do in private informs your professional life, and what you do in your professional life bleeds into the private. So again, you are like the company you keep, and if you've come up in a certain field of study, you've got to keep in mind that after you graduate, after you leave the quote, I mean, it's the perceived quote safety of the four walls of the institution. You have to come to terms with the fact that you've been institutionalized for 4 years. And what you've drawn from that, what you've drawn away from that, is going to be the knowledge and education of how to think, how to research, and how to interview. Not what to think, and then parrot as if you've read out of the book or have been told what opinions to keep in order to get, academic funding and scholarship grants and shit like that, which I also came across in higher education. Another reason not to pursue sociology, because you can't even research what the fuck you want to research without folks telling you, no, you shouldn't. No, how about you research more alphabet? I digress. All right, I was gonna keep this one a little light. So I'll leave it here. I mean, we're at 30 minutes now. If you have any questions, comments, you know what to do. Share this podcast with those that you love, with those that you want to keep in your circle, with those that you associate most closely with on a professional and on a personal level. Why not? Take care. Have a nice weekend.